Jonah Briggs was not always the hardened man he had become. Before the darkness of that fateful night, he lived a life filled with ambition and dreams. Born and raised in Silver Rock, Jonah was known for his strength and determination. He worked as a mechanic, fixing cars and dreaming of one day owning his own garage. The small town held its share of troubles, but Jonah believed in making a difference, even if it was just by helping his neighbors. His childhood was rough. He faced many challenges that built his tough exterior. Raised by a single mother who struggled to make ends meet, Jonah learned early on that life wouldn't hand him anything. He became fiercely independent, using every setback as fuel to push forward. He formed close friendships with others who shared similar hardships, finding comfort in their camaraderie. But the shadows of his past loomed large over him. Jonah had seen friends fall into the wrong crowd. Drugs, crime, and despair were constant dangers in Silver Rock. While he tried to steer clear from these pitfalls, the weight of loss haunted him. He carried memories of those who had succumbed to the darkness, knowing that life could change in an instant. As he settled into adulthood, Jonah began to distance himself from the ghost of his youth. He focused on work and carving out a better future for himself. Yet beneath his tough exterior lay an aching heart still grappling with grief and disappointment over lost friends and missed opportunities. The town would often celebrate his resilience. However, they didn't see the cracks beneath his surface. The night everything changed began like any other. Jonah had plans to meet friends for drinks at a local bar after finishing work on a car that had seen better days. Laughter filled the air as he brushed off worries about what lay ahead, unaware that fate had other plans for him. When he was attacked, robbed, and shot in the back, everything fell apart in an instant. The dreams he held so tightly slipped away like sand through fingers as darkness enveloped him in those last moments before everything became a blur. Little did they know, Jonah's story was far from over. Even buried under layers of sand and despair, something inside him flickered, a fire refusing to die out completely. As Jonah finished his shift and closed the garage doors, a sense of relief washed over him. He had worked hard that day, feeling proud of the car he had just repaired. The evening air was cool, and laughter bubbled from the nearby bar where he planned to meet some friends. But as he stepped out into the dimly lit street, an unsettling chill crept down his spine. Suddenly, out of nowhere, shadows emerged from the alleyway. Jonah's heart raced as three figures confronted him, their faces obscured by hoods and masks. Adrenaline surged through him. He knew something was terribly wrong. Just walk away, Jonah thought, but pride anchored him to the spot. Give us your wallet, one of the assailants shouted, brandishing a gun that glinted ominously in the low light. Panic surged within him as he raised his hands, feeling an overwhelming urge to protect himself rather than comply. I don't want any trouble, he said, trying to keep his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. But in a flash, everything went wrong. They lunged at him, shoving him backward into the unforgiving metal of a dumpster. Jonah stumbled and fell hard onto the pavement, shocked by the sudden violence erupting around him. Before he could react, he felt a sharp pain in his side, a searing heat that radiated outwards and caused his entire body to go numb. The world spun before his eyes as he gasped for breath, confusion mingling with fear. The sounds of chaos enveloped him. Muffled voices yelling and distant sirens blaring created a cacophony that drowned out his thoughts. As he lay there, blood pooling beneath him, Jonah's mind raced with memories of better times. His dreams of owning a garage flickered like dying embers. His senses dulled and darkness began creeping in at the edges of his vision. He felt their hands rummaging through his pockets, stealing not only his wallet but also a piece of his very soul. In those final moments before losing consciousness, all Jonah could think about was how unfair it all felt, everything stolen in an instant. Time slipped away as silence enveloped him. Jonah fought against that oppressive darkness with every ounce of strength he had left, clutching desperately at life itself as despair threatened to bury him forever in Silver Rock's unforgiving sands. Little did he know that this harrowing experience was only the beginning of a darker path filled with vengeance waiting to be ignited within him. Jonah awoke to a stinging pain that radiated through his body, though darkness clouded his mind. He felt the weight of the earth pressing down on him, suffocating him with every passing second. Confusion washed over him as he tried to make sense of his surroundings. The gritty taste of sand invaded his mouth, and he instinctively coughed in panic, a useless effort against the layers burying him. Despair washed over Jonah as he realized he was half buried in the sands outside Silver Rock, unable to move effectively. The coolness of night contrasted sharply with the warmth of blood that seeped from his wound, painting a vivid picture of his dire circumstances. Each labored breath came with an intense ache, a reminder of his fleeting grip on life. Pain threatened to consume Jonah's senses, yet within that agony stirred a fierce determination. "I can't die like this," he thought, fighting back against the oppressive weight above him. With trembling hands, he began to claw at the sand, each movement challenging his strength and willpower. Broken fingers scraped against gritty earth, and the sharp jabs of discomfort reverberated up through his arms. His heart raced, not just from panic, but from the knowledge that time was slipping away. Shadows danced before his eyes as he fought through visions of his past. Friends laughing, the smell of oil and gasoline at the garage, and dreams of opening his own shop. Each thought propelled him forward, igniting a fire in his chest that fueled his desperate struggle for survival. As grains slipped between his fingers while digging, fear crept in like a cold shiver down his spine. What if he couldn't escape? The thought alone sent waves of dread crashing over him. He could become just another lost soul buried beneath Silver Rock's unforgiving sands. But with every flicker of doubt came a rush of resolve. Get up. Jonah shouted silently to himself amidst the chaos within. Desperation turned into raw energy as he freed more space around him. Eventually, he strained with one last push to break free from the suffocating grip surrounding him. With a final gasp for breath, Jonah burst forth into open air, coughing up blood and sand as life reeled back in around him. In that moment, it became clear. Survival wasn't just about escaping. It was about vengeance against those who had taken everything from him. Filled with new purpose, Jonah vowed that he would rise again, not for mercy or justice, but for revenge that burned brightly within him like the latest spark of life itself. With every movement Jonah made, pain shot through his body, reminding him of the bullet that had struck him down. But instead of allowing it to weaken him, he channeled that agony into resolve. Each grain of sand he pushed aside felt like a barrier between him and life, a reminder that he had fought too hard to let it end here, buried under the dirt. Think of the garage, he thought fervently, picturing the hustle and bustle of his dream coming to life. His heart raced at the thought of grease-stained hands working on cars, laughter shared with friends, and the vision of a future still waiting to be grasped. Those dreams began to fan the flames of determination within him, igniting a fire that refused to be snuffed out. As Jonah struggled, memories cascaded through his mind, moments of joy interwoven with pain and loss. He recalled the faces of friends who had fallen victim to their own choices, the emptiness left behind by those he had lost. Each memory stoked his desire to not only survive, but to avenge the lives lost along with his hopes. They would not be forgotten. He would carry their spirits with him. The grit beneath his fingernails felt like a reminder of every struggle he had overcome in life. Moments of doubt hissed at him like venomous snakes slithering through his thoughts. What if you never see the light again? But Jonah pushed back against those whispers. Anger surged in response. The idea that his life could slip away while those who had harmed him roamed freely fueled his desperation. "I will rise," he silently declared amid the clamor of fear and doubt. With every ounce of energy left in his tattered body, he clawed desperately at the earth above him. The weight felt unyielding, yet something within him screamed that escape was possible. He could hear distant sounds, the winds, perhaps voices, gathering somewhere beyond his suffocating prison, urging him forward. Finally, as he took one last fractured breath, Jonah summoned all his strength into a single movement. He pushed against the damp earth one final time and felt a crack, then another. The air rushed in like a promise as he tore himself free from the suffocating sands that sought to hold him captive. Coughing violently, Jonah erupted into the open night sky. Wounded but alive, the taste of freedom flooded his senses. It wasn't merely survival that motivated him now. It was an unquenchable thirst for revenge that burned brighter than any flame within him. With renewed purpose driving each thought and action, Jonah was ready to reclaim not just his life but justice for those lost along the way. Emerging into the cool night air, Jonah felt the weight of the world press against him. The adrenaline that had fueled his escape was fading fast, replaced by a desperate need for clarity and purpose. There was no time to waste. He had a mission to fulfill. Gripping his side where the bullet had pierced him, he staggered toward Silver Rock, each step a fierce battle against pain and fatigue. The journey back was both physical and emotional, punctuated by wild flashes of memories entwined with regret. Jonah glimpsed the familiar landmarks that once brought him joy, the garage, his sanctuary, now feeling distant and unattainable. The warmth of laughter he'd shared with friends echoed faintly in his mind as he navigated the empty streets, haunted by loss. They would have been with him if fate hadn't dealt such cruel hands. As he approached the edge of town, Jonah's resolve solidified into a singular focus: revenge against those who had taken everything from him. Shadows darted around him like phantoms, reminding him that in this small town deadly secrets lurked around every corner. He knew who had attacked him. Their faces were burned into his memory, but tracking them down would be no easy task. His body felt heavy and weary as he maneuvered through darkened alleys and abandoned buildings, desperately searching for information that could lead him to them. Each encounter with passers-by ignited a well of anger within him. Some recognized the glint of vengeance in his eye and chose to turn away in fear, while others whispered rumors about the ghost of Jonah Briggs making his return. Challenges surged like waves crashing on rocks. Every closed door felt like a setback. An aching wound slowed him down, but he refused to let it weaken his spirit. Instead, it emboldened his quest. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore, but for the memory of lost friends who deserved justice. Jonah spent nights staking out places where trouble brewed. Dive bars filled with whispers and danger became his second home. He listened intently to conversations and pieced together bits of information that painted a fuller picture of those who had wronged him. Each night crept along like an eternity, yet each revelation pushed him closer to reclaiming control over his life. Though fear gnawed at his insides during moments of solitude, he maintained. The fire ignited within him, like an inferno refusing to fade in the darkest hours. With every step closer to vengeance, Jonah's heart beat with renewed purpose stronger than before. Re-entering Silver Rock wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming not just his life, but everything that had been taken from him when he fell into despair. As Jonah moved through the shadows of Silver Rock, the transformation inside him became undeniable. No longer the hopeful mechanic with dreams of a bright future, he had morphed into a relentless hunter, driven by an insatiable thirst for revenge. The attack that had nearly cost him his life had stripped away his innocence and replaced it with a fierce resolve. He wasn't looking for justice or mercy; those concepts felt hollow now. What he craved was retribution. Every step he took resonated with a new purpose. Gone was the uncertainty that had plagued him before. Now there was clarity in his mission. Jonah meticulously honed his instincts, blending into the darkness as he stalked through alleyways and hidden corners, observing potential threats while also scouring for information on his attackers. He discovered that fear could be a powerful ally. People were more likely to share secrets when they sensed someone as dangerous as him lurking nearby. The memories of pain and betrayal sharpened his focus. He recalled the faces of the masked assailants, their sneering eyes as they robbed him of everything he held dear. Each recollection fueled a fire within him, transforming sorrow into rage that propelled him forward like an unquenchable flame. Jonah started to see himself not just as a man seeking vengeance, but as an unstoppable force, ready to confront those who had wronged him. He began training in secret, learning how to fight more effectively and use the environment to his advantage. The streets of Silver Rock became both his battleground and playground, where he practiced skills that would help him reclaim what was rightfully his. His body bore the scars of survival, physical reminders of battles fought and won against despair itself. In this dark metamorphosis, Jonah found strength in solitude. Each night spent alone in contemplation solidified his resolve further. He would sit in silence, envisioning every strike he would take against those who attacked him, mapping out plans in his mind like a chess player anticipating moves ahead of time. The once innocent mechanic had become a meticulous tactician in the game of revenge. As whispers of his return spread throughout town, fear painted itself across the faces of those who recognized him. They could sense that Jonah was no longer just a victim. He was a predator, ready to hunt down those who had made him suffer. With each passing day, he drew closer to confronting his enemies with one singular goal: to make them feel every ounce of pain he had endured and to reclaim his life from the ashes they had created. The hunter was ready, and Silver Rock would soon know that Jonah Briggs was back, not for justice but for vengeance that would echo through every corner of the town. As Jonah prowled the darkened streets of Silver Rock, he realized that carrying out his quest for revenge alone could be a dangerous and daunting task. He needed allies, people who shared his thirst for vengeance or could provide him with valuable information. His instincts told him that amidst the shadows of the town, others had their own scores to settle. The first ally he encountered was a woman named Leela, a barmaid at the local dive where weary souls gathered to drown their sorrows in cheap liquor. She had seen too many lives shattered by violence and had her own scars from a past filled with betrayal. During one of his nighttime visits, Jonah noticed her striking gaze, an intensity that seemed to pierce through the drunken haze of the patrons around them. When Leela caught sight of Jonah's wounded demeanor, she recognized him as the man who had returned from the dead. "Everyone's talking about you," she whispered, leaning closer. "You're not just here for yourself anymore, are you?" Jonah met her gaze, sensing an unexpected camaraderie. "No, I'm not," he replied, slowly unfolding who he was and what he sought. Leela was intrigued. She had lost friends to violence too, and the fire of shared pain ignited a bond between them. Though cautious at first, she eventually agreed to help him track down information about his attackers, using her connections in the bar to gather whispers from anxious patrons. Then there was Marcus, a former soldier now living at the edge of town in self-imposed exile. He had once worn a badge and had seen firsthand the chaos that unraveled in Silver Rock streets when law and order failed. Though bitter and reclusive, Marcus possessed skills that Jonah desperately needed: combat training and strategic thinking. Jonah sought him out after hearing rumors of his skills during late-night conversations at Leela's bar. At first slow to trust Jonah, Marcus recognized the ferocity within him, the same fire that had once burned in his own chest during service. After they crossed paths again in a deserted alleyway, and after Jonah shared brief details of his transformation, Marcus was moved by a familiar sense of duty that emerged from deep within his soul. "Let's settle scores," he said gruffly. However, Jonah also faced potential hindrances in his quest for vengeance. A local mob who thrived on chaos began to catch wind of his intentions. They had seen too many others fall victim to their ways and wouldn't hesitate to ensure silence regarding Jonah's return. With Leela's insight into the whispers of the bar scene and Marcus's tactical prowess, Jonah began to form a plan, one that would combine their strengths against those who lurked in the darkness of Silver Rock. As they began working together to gather intelligence and ready themselves for confrontations ahead, Jonah felt renewed purpose rising within him. This journey toward vengeance would be shared amongst allies who understood loss and fury just as well as he did. The tension in the air was palpable as Jonah, Leela, and Marcus prepared to confront the men who had nearly taken his life. Jonah had spent days gathering information from the shadows, piecing together the whereabouts of his assailants. With every whispered rumor and hushed conversation they collected, he felt the fire within him grow stronger, transforming pain into a relentless drive for retribution. Their target was an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Silver Rock, a place where illicit deals and unspeakable actions often took place. As they approached, Jonah's heart raced. The familiar faces of his attackers haunted his thoughts like ghosts demanding justice. He could almost hear their mocking laughter echoing in his ears, taunting him with memories of that fateful night. They parked a safe distance away and approached on foot, moving stealthily through the darkness. Leela kept her eyes peeled for any signs of danger while Marcus scanned the surroundings for potential escape routes. "Remember, we go in quick and silent," Jonah instructed, his voice low but steady. "We strike hard and we don't let them know what's coming." As they reached the entrance, Jonah's pulse quickened. He could hear muffled voices inside, the sounds of men who believed they were untouchable. This thought ignited something primal within him. Jonah positioned himself at the door, exchanging glances with Leela and Marcus, each one filled with understanding and determination. They were in this together. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Jonah pushed the door open just enough to slip inside. The dim light revealed a scene filled with rough-looking men gathered around crates stacked high with stolen goods. The sight made his blood boil. These were the very men who had robbed him of his future and nearly ended his life. Jonah motioned for Layla and Marcus to stay close as they crept further into the heart of the warehouse. Every step felt heavy with anticipation, each shadow holding the potential for violence. As they neared the group, Jonah spotted one of the masked attackers, the one who had shot him, leaning casually against a crate, oblivious to the impending danger. A surge of adrenaline coursed through Jonah's veins as he readied himself for confrontation. He could feel the weight of vengeance pressing on his shoulders. This was a moment years in the making, but before he could act, Leela whispered urgently, "Wait, we need to create a distraction first." Jonah hesitated, weighing the options in his mind. Time was of the essence, but so was strategy. With a slight nod from Marcus, they quickly devised a plan that would allow them to strike while ensuring they had the upper hand. In that moment, everything seemed to align. Their shared purpose and determination ignited a fierce resolve within Jonah. This would not just be a confrontation, it would be a reckoning. The hunter was ready to claim his prey, and vengeance would soon be served hot in the heart of Silver Rock. The air in the warehouse was thick with anticipation as Jonah, Leela, and Marcus prepared to launch their strike against Jonah's attackers. They had executed their distraction plan flawlessly, but as they drew closer to the heart of the chaos, the reality of what they were about to do settled heavily on their shoulders. Jonah's heart pounded in his chest, both from fear and anger, as he faced the masked figures who had robbed him of his past, a feeling that stirred within him like a raging storm. The initial movement was swift. Jonah leaped into action, signaling Leela and Marcus to follow closely. The sudden chaos caught the assailants off guard. Jonah tackled the very man who had shot him, their bodies crashing to the ground amid barrels and crates filled with illicit goods. Adrenaline surged like wildfire through him as he fought against the weight of vengeance driving him forward. "Do you remember me?" Jonah growled into his attacker's face, their eyes locking in a fierce glare. The man struggled beneath him, confusion and fear evident, and with each shaky breath, memories flooded back into Jonah's mind. His dreams shattered, laughter lost, innocence stolen. Jonah gave in to the primal urge coursing through his veins. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for everyone who had suffered at the hands of merciless men like this one. With a rush of strength fueled by anguish and sorrow, he delivered a blow that echoed within the warehouse walls. Leela and Marcus moved with deadly precision of their own. Leela weaved among the chaos, disarming another attacker with practiced ease while Marcus confronted a pair of enemies simultaneously, using his military training to gain the upper hand. Their bond made them formidable. There was fire in their hearts as they faced these monstrous opponents together. But amidst the chaos of battle, moments of doubt flickered in Jonah's mind. Was this revenge worth it? While every punch struck against those who had wronged him felt just, he began to question whether this confrontation would assuage his pain or throw him deeper into darkness. The lines between justice and revenge blurred dangerously as brutal realities unfolded before him. As Jonah sent another assailant sprawling across the floor, breathing heavily under this weight of fury and adrenaline, a nagging thought seeped through. Would he ever find solace in avenging wrongs? Or would fulfilling this vendetta only deepen the abyss he felt inside? The screams of fury mixed with echoes of anguish danced in his ears. Victory seemed close at hand, but an unsettling realization grew within him. The toll vengeance extracted might be heavier than any price he could imagine. Still grappling with this conflict in his heart, Jonah prepared for what lay ahead. Regardless of how this clash would change him further, there was no turning back now. He was not merely battling foes, he was clamoring for clarity amid chaos, a truth still waiting to crystallize amidst shards of pain and promise yet unclaimed. In the aftermath of the violent showdown in the warehouse, Jonah stood among the wreckage, his enemies defeated, but the weight of their blood on his hands was a heavy burden. The adrenaline that had surged through him during the fight began to ebb, leaving behind a tide of cold realization. He had sought revenge, believing it would bring him peace and restore a sense of justice, but instead he confronted a profound emptiness within himself. The cheers of victory from Leela and Marcus faded into the distance as Jonah's thoughts spiraled inward. It was hard to reconcile the satisfaction he had imagined with the harsh reality that lay before him. The smiles and nods of approval from his allies felt like distant echoes, and he couldn't help but wonder, had he truly avenged his past, or had he merely wandered deeper into a darkness that threatened to swallow him whole? As they exited the crumbling building, Jonah surveyed the street where once vibrant life had flourished, now colorless like a painting washed bare. Though the pain inflicted by his attackers was gone, a new ache settled in his heart. He had become the hunter he'd set out to be, yes, but in doing so he had also become something else, an instrument of chaos and violence. "Are you all right?" Marcus asked, concern etched across his face as he observed Jonah's vacant expression. Leela stood by his side, her own eyes holding unspoken questions. "We did what we had to do," she offered gently, as if trying to reassure him. Jonah turned away from them momentarily, grappling with what felt like an unwelcome truth. Revenge hadn't healed him, it had pulled him further away from the man he used to be. In chasing vengeance, he had lost more than just innocence. Weighing heavily upon him were all those dreams of a peaceful life, laughter shared in good company, and a garage filled with hope. Though enemies lay scattered around him, some alive, some lifeless, all Jonah felt was an expanding void where fulfillment should have lived. Instead of liberating him from despair, this victory felt like an act that sealed him within a prison of regret. He pondered the stories of those who sought revenge only to find themselves trapped in cycles of violence. With every step away from the scene of carnage, Jonah made a choice. He would not allow himself to succumb fully to darkness. He vowed to seek redemption, not just for himself but also for those lost along the way, and for Layla and Marcus who had fought by his side amid the chaos. Perhaps despite all odds stacked against him in Silver Rock, there still lay a path toward peace waiting patiently for him to grasp it before it slipped away forever. As Jonah stepped away from the ruins of the warehouse, the weight of his choices pressed heavily on him, yet a flicker of hope ignited within. He had emerged from darkness not just as a survivor, but as a man transformed, shaped by loss, conflict, and an unyielding quest for vengeance. The fire that once burned solely for revenge now glimmered with the possibility of redemption, a path he hadn't anticipated when he first clawed his way out of that grave. In the quiet aftermath, Jonah found himself reflecting on what he had learned throughout this harrowing journey. The pain he had endured was real and visceral, but it had also opened his eyes to the complexities of life and humanity. Each encounter with violence had stripped away layers of his former self, revealing not only the hunter within but also the man yearning for connection and peace. He realized that vengeance, while intoxicating in its promise of retribution, was a double-edged sword. It could easily blind one to the true cost of their actions. In seeking to inflict pain on others, he had nearly lost sight of who he wanted to be. The faces of those he fought alongside, Leela and Marcus, reminded him that they shared scars and struggles. They too were searching for healing in a world rife with chaos. But even as Jonah grappled with these revelations, a sense of clarity began to crystallize. His journey was not merely about settling scores or seeking justice. It was about reclaiming his own humanity amidst despair. As he looked at Silver Rock, the shadows were still there, but now intertwined with flickers of resilience. He envisioned a future beyond revenge. Walking through the town that had once felt so familiar yet foreign after all that had transpired made him realize how much he missed simple things. The laughter shared over drinks at Leela's bar, the smell of grease in his garage, and dreams unfurling with hope rather than anger. Jonah knew he needed to rebuild these connections if he ever hoped to move forward. With each step forward, Jonah vowed to honor those lost in pursuit of revenge by channeling that fire into something constructive. Perhaps helping others who suffered like him could serve as a balm for his own wounds. There lay ahead a path filled with challenges, but also opportunities for growth and healing. While shadows would always linger in Silver Rock, there was light peeking through, a chance to create something better from the ashes left behind. Jonah understood now that true strength lay not just in survival or vengeance, but in choosing compassion over chaos and forging bonds over bitterness. With renewed determination guiding him, Jonah set forth into an uncertain future, one where redemption awaited him just beyond the horizon.